Welcome back for another episode of Inside the 605. So glad you could be here to join me, Jason Andera of 605 Sports, for a look at the last 7 days and the next 7 days in high school hoops in South Dakota. And let me tell you, the last 7 days were jam-packed with some big-time highlights, and the next 7 days promise to be some of the best of the season. So you're going to want to catch all of the happenings right here on Inside the 605. Let's start with those last 7 days, some of the highlights and some of the big headlines that happened. And it starts with Class A in girls basketball. The Vermillion Tanagers had quite a week. They have now won 7 games in a row after a little skid in the middle of the season. But in those 7 games, they've beaten Lyman, Parkston, and then this week took out a previously unbeaten Sioux Falls Christian, Sisseton at the NEC DAC 12 Classic, and then took out Dakota Valley on Tuesday night, a top 5 team. And now they have an entire week to rest up before they play the final game of their regular season. The defending champs are definitely heading in the right direction. Speaking of Class A girls basketball, we've got a new number 1 in the class. Mahpiya Luta has vaulted to number 1. I have been voting for them the last several weeks as the top team in Class A, and they finally make it to that spot with Sioux Falls Christian's loss. But Tuesday, they had one of the biggest tests they've had all season long. They have not had a single-digit game all year, and St. Thomas More was beating them with just a couple minutes left on the clock in the fourth quarter. But Ashlyn Carlo Blunt came up huge with a big last 2 minutes to help her team with a 43-40 win, a tough-fought win for the Crusaders, the toughest they've had all season long, but they still are your new number 1 team in girls Class A. Let's talk about AA basketball a little bit. Tuesday night featured a couple of ranked battles in boys and girls basketball between the same 2 schools. The Lynx, number 3 in girls AA, hosted the number 2 Washington Warriors. And on the boys' side, they played at the Washington gym. It was the number 5 Warriors taking on the number 1 Lynx. Well, in the girls' game, Brandon Valley and the Lynx got out to a great start. Olivia Paget and Amanda Lease, both went for 20 points as they led throughout this contest, getting a really tough win. And the Brandon Valley Lynx probably will jump Washington back in the standings once again with that win, but a good home win for the Lynx. And then in the Washington gym between Washington and Brandon Valley, the Warriors trying to upend that top team in Class AA. It was a back-and-forth game. The Lynx ended up winning their 13th in a row this season, staying at number 1. Hard-fought win. Brandon Valley, in the process, not known for their outside shooting all the time, but hit 10 threes in that game, led by Landon Delaney, who had 5 of those three-pointers for 26 points. By the way, Tommy Hoffman in the loss hit 6 three-pointers in his team's effort to try to upend the Lynx. So some great performances last week. We've got a couple other notable performances that we'll talk about a little later during the Real Deal. Some records that need to be mentioned, but like I said, that's coming up in just a bit. First, let's talk about the game changers of the week. And once again, just so many messages and texts and emails coming from you guys out there. Really appreciate making this list as comprehensive as we possibly can, and so many names to go over. Let's get started with the boys' side this week. And Drew Bakeberg of Warner went for a 30-point game in their big win Tuesday night over Redfield, 70-41. Big night for him. Trevin Beckman once again on this list, and he does it in fashion with a career-high 46 points against Iroquois Lake Preston, and then followed it up Monday with another double-double, a 23-point, 11-rebound game against Arlington. Trey Hansen, I don't know if anybody's hotter right now than Trey Hansen of Vermillion. He has been torching the Nets. 34 points against Groton in a 75-65 win, and then came back with a 28-point performance in his next game Tuesday against Dakota Valley, a team that has traditionally been a thorn in the side for Vermillion. So Trey Hansen helping that team get off to a tremendous record so far this season. Let's talk about Blake Elwine of Huron. He went for 32 points in a win over Sturgis on Saturday, 10 of 15 from the field, and a perfect 10 for 10 from the line as well. Tremendous performance for the youngster who continues to impress as a junior. And then he put up another 25 points on Tuesday as well. Some big numbers for a AA forward. Blair Ham of Lemon, he set the all-time scoring record at the school, passing Steve Duncan with 1,142 points, but scored 36 and 7 in their win over South Hart. He has been tremendous, not only just scoring, but his three-point shooting has been phenomenal as well. Isaac Hunter of Miller went for a 30-point game, 32 points for him in their win over MVP on Tuesday. How about Spencer Karstens hitting that triple-double against Bridgewater Emory on Friday? 24 points, 10 boards, 10 assists, and then follows it up with a big Tuesday performance of 28 points and 12 rebounds, and also 5 assists in that game as they took on Freeman Academy Marion on Tuesday night and got the win. Nolan Krull of Harrisburg, what a half for this youngster. 6 of 7 from the three-point land against their rivals from T area on Tuesday night. They won 66-59. He netted 22 points, going 6 of 7 from beyond the arc. Marvin Richard III, again, we're going to talk more about him when Ryan Deal comes on, but how about his 62-point performance? The most ever in a Class A matchup, breaking a record that was set and tied by Alejandro Rema and Josh Mueller. But a 62-point performance, that's crazy. That'll get you on the Game Changers list for sure. And then he followed it up with a 40-plus point game against Lennox on Tuesday. Grant Wilkinson, he's not just a football player, folks. Week in, week out, getting his name on this list. What did he do on Thursday? He went and set a school record with 46 points in a game. Yes, the same school that has Kalen Gary and several others who have had dominant high school basketball careers. Grant goes out and gets the school record in a 75-64 win. And then Tuesday does it again against Flandreau with a 20-20, 23 points, 20 rebound game to get his team a 2-point win against Flandreau. Huge shout out to Grant Wilkinson. Wesley Whitler of Sully Buttes, 30 points, and then another 29-point performance. This guy continues to put up huge game after game, helping his team get a couple wins against Potter County and Harriet Selby area. Let's move on to the girls, and lots of game changers on the girls' side as well, and Addison Heinge once again leading this list off. She went for a 44 last week, went for another 40 this week, 13 rebounds, 8 steals, almost a triple-double with the steals and rebounds. That would be impressive as they get the 6-point win against Ipswich. Needed all those points for Wilmot. Jalen Huntemer went for 32 points, 8 rebounds, and then followed it up with another big performance on Saturday with 20 points, 10 rebounds against GPL. Ashlyn Kopel of Wagner continues to put up big numbers after big numbers. 32.6 rebound game against ACDC to get a 7-point win on Thursday. And then Tuesday, another 26-point game against a really good Sanborn Central Woonsocket team. Also had 6 blocks in that game. Olivia Paget of Brandon Valley, playing against some of the best competition they've played all season long. She was at her best. 23 points, 5 assists in that game against Washington on Tuesday. Shout out to Olivia. Taylor Roovers of Vermillion. Maybe not the same numbers point-wise as she put up last week, but still consistently really good with 23 points on Tuesday night against Dakota Valley, and then had 16 points as they took down number 1 previously undefeated Sioux Falls Christian. Max Scott, 3 big games for her. She totaled 60 points in her 3 games. Her wins over Highmore Herald, North Central, and Gregory. And then Amory Vandervorst, 4 3-point hoops and went for 27 total points in their 50-20 win over Stanley County on Tuesday. Also had a 23-point performance the game before that. So Amory off to a great start this season as well. Time to catch up with our favorite 605 Sports Writer of the Year in South Dakota, Ryan Deal, and the real deal. Ryan, let's talk about some big-time performances, some records being set, and 2 different players, Talia Porter and Marvin Richard III, continue to do big-time things. Let's start with Talia Porter and just the magnitude of this record and who she beat for the school record in Rapid City Stevens history.
Yeah, coming into the season, a lot of people know that I kind of keep track of the scoring records throughout the state, and 2,000 point scores, and all this stuff. And Talia Porter coming into the season was close to breaking Becky Hammond's all-time scoring record at Rapid City Stevens. She got it done in a recent game against Falls O'Gorman. Lost the game, but got to give credit to Talia Porter. Anytime you break a record that belongs to Becky Hammond, her resume speaks for itself with what she's done, what she did in the state of South Dakota, and then beyond. Now in the WNBA. So props to Talia for breaking that record, and she's getting close to cracking the top 10 Class AA girls all-time scoring. So she kind of keeps rising up that list. So that's something that fans will have to kind of keep track of for Talia throughout the season.
And then Marvin Richard III just continues to do Marvin Richard III type things, but this was a little crazy. He set the record for most points in a game in Class A history.
Absolutely. Marvin Richard III, we've talked a lot about him, this year. And he just had another big time game, big time performance, scoring 62 points. And like you said, setting the Class A boys basketball all time scoring record. And it was held by two players, West Central's Josh Mueller and Mahpiya Luta's Alejandro Rama. Anytime you can break a record that was shared by Josh Mueller, you're doing something good, something right. So props to Marvin for breaking that record. And he just recently had another big game, had 43 points against Lennox. So Marvin's just having a heck of a season. And I've kind of said this before, but I've interviewed him in the past a few different times, and just very down to earth, very humble kid. He's doing it for his teammates and the community down there in Pine Ridge. So props to Marvin for breaking that record.
Always great games to talk about, Ryan. And this week, a couple great ones right in your backyard in Mitchell at the Corn Palace, the DWU Culver's Classic. The girls' side, we've got a great one between Parkston and Ethan, a chance for both of these teams to really vault into a late February run.
Yeah, absolutely. That one's big. Coaches and maybe some of the people in the media, we really always talk about the points and what this win could do for a team, when it comes to the power points. And this is a big one here. I feel, the winner of this one could really do themselves a nice little boost by racking up some points. And playing at the Corn Palace, is this going to, when you talk about actually the on the court stuff, just playing at the Corn Palace, is this going to create a fun atmosphere? Parkston just down the road, Ethan just down the road, both close to the Corn Palace. The great fan support on both sides. So that'll definitely be a fun one to keep an eye on at the Corn Palace.
And on the boys' side, a ton of great games to talk about at the DWU Culver's Classic as well. But kind of unique, we've got a Class A title contender going against a Class B title contender. Rapid City Christian takes on Viborg Hurley.
I always say at the Classics, it's fun because you're going to have teams from different parts of the state, meeting and playing each other. And this is going to be the case here with Viborg Hurley and Rapid City Christian. But yeah, this one's a little bit of a wrinkle to it. You got a Class A team and a Class B team, sizing up each other. So this will definitely be a fun one to see how it plays out. I mean, they know going in that they're not going to see each other the rest of the season. So it's just a really good measuring stick for both teams. But obviously both teams, they want to go in there and win, because you could really, again, rack up some points, rack up some seed points, and you just test yourself against a quality team. So that'll be a really fun one to keep track of at the Corn Palace.
Those are just a couple among a lot of good matchups in the DWU Culver's Classic. You can catch that on Live Ticket TV. Check that out at liveticket.tv on how you can watch those games. Let's talk about what you're working on. You put out a great story about the Centerville girls. This is a team that went on a magical ride last year, and then this year have done nothing less than great all season long. Tell us about your write-up with the Centerville Tornadoes.
Yeah, absolutely. Some people know about their story, won the state championship last year. And it was really cool because it wasn't too long ago, the 2016-17 season, they did not even have a varsity program. They just did not have the numbers. The numbers weren't there. So they slowly built the program up to what they were able to accomplish last year, winning a state championship. And three key pieces to that state championship were, there are three seniors this year with Althea Gust, Kiera Austin, and Emma Marshall. A couple of those players were there through the rough years, playing as 7th, 8th graders. Really had to kind of go through some tough moments with that program. And then Emma Marshall came over from Irene Wakanda, a nice addition for those guys last year. So yeah, just a fun story to write about what they've meant to the program. And they're definitely going to leave that program in a better place than whenever they got there. And it's going to be fun to see how the rest of the season plays out for the Tornadoes.
Thanks again, Ryan Deal of 605 Sports. 5 biggest games coming up in the next 7 days. And we'll start with the boys' side once again. The number 5 game of the week, Hamlin taking on St. Thomas More, another Class A matchup between 2 title contenders. St. Thomas More loves to test themselves, and Hamlin does too. Hamlin has been playing in classic after classic after classic, and St. Thomas More, they'll log the miles to go play whoever they have to play. That one's at the DWU Culver's Classic. Number 4, a ranked battle between Washington and Mitchell. Washington goes on the road in this one. They've been testing themselves with a really tough portion of their schedule. And Mitchell, they've had a couple games where they let teams hang around a little bit. And then there's also some games where they've blown out some of the best teams in the state. Which Mitchell team shows up, we will see. But that one coming up next Tuesday at the Corn Palace, Washington at Mitchell. The number 3 game of the week, St. Mary's takes on Freeman. Freeman just coming off of a fantastic game on Tuesday night where they absolutely lit up the scoreboard, taking on St. Mary's, a team with just 1 loss. Freeman, one of those teams in Class B, I think maybe gets overlooked a little bit with 3 losses on the season. They can be a tough contender, but St. Mary's just had Maverick LeBrun go over 1,000 career points. He has been spectacular for them. And of course, Trevin Beckman, one of the best in all of Class B, continues to routinely put up 30 and 40-point games for St. Mary's. So they'll have their hands full with a good Freeman team. That's the number 3 game on our list. Number 2, Ryan Deal talked about it, Rapid City Christian taking on Viborg Hurley, one of the best in Class A going up against once the best in Class B. For Viborg Hurley, since they're playing a class up, it's going to be a challenge for them. For Rapid City Christian, they don't see a lot of teams with a player like Nick Hansen in the middle with the good shooting that they have on the outside. It's going to be up and down, I believe, and Rapid City Christian definitely has their hands full, even though Viborg Hurley is from a Class B school. And the top game to look forward to in the next 7 days, let's take a look at Lincoln and Brandon Valley playing on Valentine's Day, Friday night. The number 1 versus the number 2 team in Class AA. This one's going to be at the Brandon Valley Gym. Brandon Valley is in a stretch of their schedule where they're playing 4 of their next 5 games against teams that are in the top 5 in Class AA. So get ready. Put the seatbelt on. Let's see what you got against the Lincoln Patriots. That's going to be a phenomenal game. On the girls' side, the top 5 games to look forward to, Mitchell taking on Washington as well. They do on the boys' side, they do on the girls' side. And Mitchell coming off of a frustrating loss against Spearfish where they had a huge lead last week and ended up losing in the Corn Palace, are going to try to right the ship against Washington, a team that also lost last week to Brandon Valley. So both teams in search of getting back on track. Hamlin taking on St. Mary's. You might not think of this one because it's not a top 5 battle, but it should be a great game. Hamlin only with 3 losses on the year. St. Mary's with 4 losses on the year. Both teams have a lot of great players on the court. It's going to be a challenge for each team to see what they're made of as we enter the last couple of weeks of the season. Parkston taking on Ethan. This one Ryan Deal talked about, and it's a huge game for both teams. Class B contenders. Ethan got roughed up a little bit by Sanborn Central Woonsocket and wants to prove they can play with the top 5 team in this game. And being at the Corn Palace, really in the backyard for both Parkston and Ethan. Ethan plays really good defense. Parkston's got a lot of attacking players, including Lauren Zebart. Let's talk about the number 2 game, the Sioux Falls Christian taking on Lyman at the DWU Classic. And Sioux Falls Christian trying to bounce back after that loss that they had last week to Vermillion. They're going to try to take it out on Lyman, a class below them, a team that is in the top 3 in B, but needs a signature win, and this would go a long way for the Lyman Raiders if they could play with one of the top teams in the state, regardless of class, in Sioux Falls Christian. That will definitely be worth watching. And the number 1 game of the week, also a AA game. O'Gorman taking on O'Gorman taking on Washington in girls basketball. This one could be a phenomenal game coming up Friday. Washington and O'Gorman have been the two teams that have gone back and forth for championships over the last several years. They played earlier in the year. Washington had the lead in the second half against O'Gorman in their home gym, couldn't find a way to seal the deal. They've got another opportunity to go up against the Knights, and we'll see if the Knights can stay undefeated with this spectacular crew that they have this year of youngsters and seniors and transfers and so many different types of players that have come together and made O'Gorman so good. Well, that'll do it for this week. So Inside the 605, I'm Jason Andera. Make sure to reach out. Let me know if you see anything that you think should be on this show. And until then, we'll see you next week.